Andrew, we're back for our second episode of Straight Stick. Exciting to see you again. And I think this is a really good one, what we've got planned.
Yeah, David, we have Battalion Chief Seth Merritt with a very impressive Wildland resume. He'll be discussing that when we introduce him later. But we are excited to talk about something that's very relevant. This being springtime and the fire season is upon us.
Yeah, it looks, by all estimates, this may be a very busy fire season. So I think strap in. This is a good episode. And what are folks listening to?
You are listening to Straight Stick.
Engine 152, Rescue 151, and Battalion 181 respond to an audience hungry for firefighter news, stories, and information. You're listening to Straight Stick.
A little bit of news before we begin. This is related to our topic. 4 firefighters were injured during a prescribed burn yesterday, the first week of May in Covello, California. And of the 4 firefighters, 2 actually had to be medevaced to a burn center at the University of California in Davis. So, wildland fires they're dangerous. They move fast. They can behave in unexpected ways. And you have a lot of experience with those. And I know we've got a lot to talk about with our guest that we chatted with earlier today.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Unfortunately, injuries are common every year. It's really unfortunate when they happen before the season even starts. Today we have Battalion Chief from Eastside Fire and Rescue, Seth Merritt. Again, we'll let him discuss his resume. He does a far better job than we do, but extensive background in wildland firefighting.
Yeah, very impressive. You've worked with him. You've been deployed on wildland events with him.
Yes, Seth and I took a trip to California together many years ago, and in the podcast, we reminisced about going to fires in Eastern Washington as far back as 2001 together.
And full disclosure, I'm a volunteer with King County Fire District 27 in Fall City, and Chief Merritt is the battalion chief that is often stationed at our station in Fall City, serving the region. And we will learn during his conversation that Eastside Fire and Rescue covers close to 300 square miles in the area, just a little bit east of Seattle. So without further ado, let's start that interview. Andrew, we have a fantastic guest with us today, and we are actually recording this the day after National Firefighters Day here in the beginning of May. It's actually Cinco de Mayo that we're recording this, May 5th. Wildland fires, the season is already well underway, it's my understanding. I'm not an expert on this topic. Both you and our guest are. So, Andrew, do you want to introduce our guest? And he'll basically share his background with us himself.
Yes, thanks, David. So we are, you have several years of structure firefighting. I have several years of structure firefighting with some wildland peppered in there. I started as a hand crew in the 90s, did some work there, and then after 15 years, I think, on the line, Shoreline started my home agency started a wildland team, and I started deploying again. So, but I've gone to California a few times, gone to East Washington a few times, but I am certainly no expert. But Chief Merritt here has a tremendous amount of wildland experience, and you're a strike team leader currently. Are you higher than that, Chief?
Oh, just a little higher.
A little higher. I think I've gone on a fire with you before as a strike team leader. But what's your assignment now?
Currently, I'm operations section chief on a national incident management team.
Perfect. We definitely have an expert with us. Chief, could you give us a quick rundown on your wildland resume?
Yeah, let me give you a real quick bio. First of all, thanks for having me. Happy to see both of you guys. Worked with both of you in some capacity over our careers. Started out in 1996 as a cadet firefighter in Yakima County. Got an early start. Lucky to get in at that age and find my direction early in life. At 18, I got hired as a 911 call taker and then became a dispatcher, public safety dispatcher, both police and fire, and still volunteering and loved it. Getting into the fire service as a career position was pretty hard in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I kind of wrapped my mind around probably just going to stay a dispatcher. It's a good gig and I can volunteer. And I was a volunteer officer at that point. And then I landed a job in Woodinville and started the 2000s and spent 20 years there. But my time in Yakima gave me a snapshot of wildland, being in Eastern Washington, going on all kinds of wildland fires, gave me a passion for it. And then coming over to Western Washington as a career, that was probably one of the biggest letdowns for me, is that we just didn't do wildland. It wasn't a focus. There weren't brush trucks. People didn't think about it, didn't really talk about it back then. And then in 2006, that all changed with the Columbia complex. And I deployed with my agency in a Type 1 engine, and we spent a couple weeks in Eastern Washington fighting fire. And that's where it really kicked off in my organization, changed our course, got our first brush truck, developed a wildland team, started working through the steps in wildland to work up from a firefighter 2, a basic wildland firefighter, up to engine boss. And then each position that I got into, I would look at the person that was leading me on an incident and say, man, I think I can do better than that person. It was not that I wanted to be in charge, but I'd get frustrated with poor leadership and bad decision making and putting people at risk. I'd think if I go through the process and get to that point, I can take better care of people that are in my position right now. I can tell you the fire and the strike team leader where I decided I was going to be one because he did such a shitty job. And so over the course of my career in Woodinville, I worked all the way up to division supervisor. In 2016, I joined a national incident. At that time, it was more of a regional incident management team, Northwest Team 11, and became a division supervisor trainee. I'd been a strike team leader and a task force leader for a couple of years. And then got qualified as a division and really thought I had arrived. And then my team disbanded. There was a shortage of incident commanders nationally, and the team just went away. And so I was kind of in limbo and thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe I'll go back to being just going out with my agency. So I'm kind of giving you two competing paths here, both my career and wildland. But then in a few years after that, my agency got absorbed by another. We joined Eastside Fire and Rescue, and Eastside has a huge wildland presence and a great wildland program. And I got to come in and become the battalion chief that managed the wildland program. It's quite an honor to go from a smaller department to the larger and take on that responsibility. And I also got picked up by another incident management team out of the Northwest as a division supervisor, Northwest Team 7. Now there's been the numbers slowly dwindling, but there's 46 and then 42, and I don't know the exact number that we're at nationally, but the teams keep shrinking just due to lack of participation and lack of people. So it's getting harder and harder with the teams to fill the role. I don't know what it's at this year. We'll probably know here soon how many are left. But on Team 7, I thought I was going to stay a division. I have the best leadership, the best ops chiefs, an incredible incident commander, and it really was, I'd found my Shangri-La. And then they started talking about succession planning, and they started talking about they're going to retire sometime. And those of us that were in the division supervisor role had to start training, start moving up. So I opened up my operations section chief task book unwillingly. I pushed back hard. My ops chief told me, if you're not going to open your book, don't bother applying next year. I think it was a little tongue in cheek, but I opened my book and got through it and became a operations section chief complex. So that's where I'm at right now. It's a great spot to be in my organization. supports me. I think last year I spent 82 days out deployed, and it seems to increase every year.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. Can you also share with us, and we'll stay on predominantly wildland fire topics today, but tell us about your day job, if you will, as a battalion chief.
Okay, my day job, shift battalion chief on A shift. I have 5 stations that I manage, and a couple other departments with single stations that we provide command for. So really, I've got 7 stations in my battalion, but 5 that I deliver items to if they need it. The other 2 don't call me if they need toilet paper. It's a great area that I cover, a large square mileage. We have 4 battalions. I think I'm in the best one. That's just that's my personal view, and I plan to stay there for the rest of my career. But it has the best balance of calls. It's got a lot of wildland urban interface. We do see the most significant amount of fires, I think, in this part of King County out in my battalion. So I enjoy that aspect of it. And we also cover Interstate 90, a large swath of Interstate 90 with the high traffic volume. So I get the best of both worlds. I have an amazing area to respond as a structure firefighter, and also that crossover with wildland in that area.
And you mentioned a number of stations, but Eastside Fire and Rescue is actually much larger than that, right? You're up to 15, 16 stations now?
Yeah, we're at 16 now. Different agencies have come in and contracted with us. It's grown quite a bit, and started out in a 4-station fire department in Woodinville, and then we lost one through an annexation, went down to 3 stations, and it 36 square miles, had felt like you had a border wall around you and a little area that you couldn't leave. And now it's unbelievable the amount of area that we cover as an agency, and the ability to free roam and provide great assistance to the public.
And when I was a volunteer with Eastside Fire and Rescue, before Woodinville, Duval, Mercer Island, and other areas came on, I think it was well over 200 square miles at that time. Do you know what it is today in our entire coverage area?
I believe we're up around 300 square miles now with the last agency that came in with Duval joining.
That's pretty wild. You put a lot of miles on your Chiefs car there.
Oh, yes, you do. We were talking a little bit earlier about Andrew's longest response. That's almost every shift I work. It's my longest response.
Yeah, remarkable.
So as a guy that works in the suburbs, when we do our annual wildland interurban refreshers, it is a PowerPoint and then a deploy your pack, right? Lay some lines between some structures. I have yet to attend an Eastside refresher, but from what I understand, could you explain those? You involve hand crews from the state, helicopters. You're actually doing some backburning. Could you go through what you guys do for a refresher?
Yeah, well, we put on some really fun training. Yeah. And Eastside's done it. Before I joined, they were the leaders in the region. They were the first ones with multiple brush engines. And my very first state mobilization was in 2001 to Hanford, and I arrived on a brush truck from Yakima County, and the first incident management team person that arrived was an ops chief from Eastside Fire and Rescue. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I ever saw an Eastside logo, vehicle, or uniform, and he was the first arriving command person that came for a Type 3 incident management team that was going to run that. So my exposure to Eastside's involvement, I would say, spans my entire career. What Eastside does for training, we start out, we have a captain that's assigned as part of our leadership for the wildland team, and he plans out our training for the whole year and puts together a lot of unique things, but we try and do some things that are regional and not just Eastside specific. So for our refresher training, we take what the state puts out and sends out to everybody to do your RT 130 refresher. We upgrade that a little bit, And then we do give that virtually so that we hit all the shifts, because in my agency, we teach everybody to the same level. Everybody that comes out of the academy gets their Wildland Firefighter 2 training, and everybody gets the same refresher training so that we're giving it at a high level. We meet the WAC and we exceed it. Then we go out and we do our pack test on the Sammamish River Trail. It's 4 days scheduled. We hit every shift, and it's hosted, and there's mile markers, and it's done in a group setting, so it's fun, and there's that peer pressure to do it with a purpose, and really a great time. And everybody gets paid to come out on your day off to do the training, so it encourages participation. We don't make everybody get an incident qualification card. If you don't want one, you don't have to. The training is offered to you. I think roughly 70 people then do the pack test and the shelter deployment out there that day, and that gets them qualified for the upcoming season. But at any point, people can, take that on if they've had the initial training sometime in their career. So that's the basics. Then we do a couple other things. We host a battalion chief level simulation that we put on for all the battalion chiefs. We offer it to Zone 1, Zone 3, that's North and South King County, to come. And it's basically trying to put command officers in that mental headspace of managing a large incident. We don't see a lot of them. We haven't seen a lot of them in King County, but they're coming, and they're becoming more frequent. We had the Bolt Creek fire a couple of years ago. I was on that. And if you just move that fire one drainage south, that would have been in the I-90 corridor, and it would have been a totally different story with the amount of people that live in the 90 corridor versus the Highway 2 corridor. So we're trying to get our BCs all in that thought process and thinking about how we're going to manage the large incident. Then the next thing that we do is we offer a regional training day, and we go out to North Bend. There's a camp out there that gives us access, and we invite every agency in King County, Forest Service, DNR, Watershed, to all come and participate. And we set up stations. And it's not a basic level. It's a little more advanced, but there's saw work, there's bucking trees, there's some tree falling, there's doing long progressive hose lays, which is something that, a lot of structure firefighters get exposed to these days, a progressive hose lay. But it doesn't get expanded on, and they don't see the value of running that out for 6 miles. They're thinking about wrapping it around a house. So when we start doing these scenarios in this field day or training day, we expand upon that basic construction that they've had and really try and broaden their understanding of what we do out in the wildland. The funny thing that I joke about is I don't care what day we plan that in May, it rains that day. So this year I can tell you it's going to rain on May 29th. I don't care how nice it is on the 28th, and it's going to rain. It always does, which really is hard to get your mind into the wildland when you're out there soaking wet from your knees down. But it's a great opportunity. We cover drafting, tender ops, whole bump and run last year. We were teaching people mobile attack as they were moving through structures. So really try and bring everybody together. And then that facial recognition. When I see you at that drill and I see the guys off the Forest Service engines, then when later in the season, when we actually are out there on an incident together, we train together, we pulled hose together, and it makes us much more successful.
Agreed. I was at Hanford as well in 2001. We actually went onto the Hanford reservation. We had an SUV in front of us with armed guards and an SUV behind us with armed guards, and we were not to let the fire jump the road. That was a big fire.
Is this where the nuclear facility is?
Yes, we were inside the fence of Hanford nuclear property. So we were nowhere near the structures. You could see the structures a mile in the distance through the sagebrush. And they met us. They said, report to this gate. There was 2 SUVs and men holding AR-15s. And they gave us instructions. You will stay behind me, in front of him. You will not leave the road. Any questions? And one of the guys on the team said, hey, do you have like 6-foot jackrabbits hopping around back there? And he stone cold face said, "Do you have any serious questions?" Like, all right. He said, "Stay on the road. Let's go." And yeah, we burned the two fires together from the road, just bumping up for, I think, 12 hours.
Well, Chief, how big a fire was that?
I don't remember the exact acreage on that fire. It was very large at that point, and I remember that Energy Secretary Bill Richardson got called apparently by the president. This is what we were told, and if the fire was not controlled and contained and continued to spread across Hanford, he was going to be out of a job. So there was great impetus to get it stopped on the reservation.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Andrew, the Geiger counter when we got back to camp being run over us?
Oh, yeah. So when we were on the base, they were flying overhead, taking readings all day, every day. Yeah, I remember that.
And they offered us testing for life. And I can tell you what 18, 19-year-old kids say, "I'm fine."
Right.
But they offered to test us for life because of our exposure on that one incident, because of everything that got airborne.
Yeah.
Well, I know people that have worked at Hanford that, had developed cancers later in their life. So they were in fairly innocuous positions. They were protected and whatnot, but you never know. There's certainly a high incident of radioactive diseases that have occurred to a lot of the working population of Hanford. So another contaminant to worry about at a fire. So Hanford's one place, obviously a big facility, a government facility. I would imagine there's not shaker roofs on any of their structures or cute shrubbery around the buildings, but there are around our homes. What can you, and this is a bit of a little side question here, but what are some of the top things, if we have a regular homeowner listening to us, what are some of the top things homeowners can do to protect themselves if their home is against a big wildland fire area?
Yeah. Most homes don't burn down from a flaming front. It's generally embers, and embers that get into a home. When you have large conflagration fires that are moving through communities, there's always associated wind. And Andrew, you've been to California. I've been to California. We've seen the Santa Ana winds, and I've deployed a hose line and sprayed water where the hose came out and did a 90-degree turn, or the water came out of the hose and makes a 90-degree turn, and you have zero impact on blowing embers. And an ember storm or ember cast that's blowing is it's impressive to see. So there's not one single tactic or strategy for homeowners. It's a layered approach. But really, you got to start with everything up against the structure that can take embers. Anything that can be a receptive spot. So we tell people all the time, clean out your gutters. I forget about my gutters until the fall. I don't live close to anything I'm surrounded by alfalfa fields. So ember cast probably isn't that big of a threat. But if you have fuels around your house that drop into your gutters or along the edge of your foundation or blow in underneath your deck, those are places where when that ember cast is being blown in the event of a fire, it only takes one ember to get in. Firefighters have to be right 100% of the time, and the fire only has to send one ember. So starting at the house, when we're talking about structure defense, it's working from the house out. So it's that 0 to 5 feet, really clearing that, having everything non-combustible up against the house. Non-combustible pavers, not putting bark in beds that come right up underneath the edge of your siding. And these are things that are easier to do. People that are building now in the wildland urban interface, especially with the challenges of getting insurance, they're building more fire defensible homes. They're doing different siding and metal roofs and sprinklers on the roofs. And there's a lot of things out there, but those are expensive. And if you're going to go upgrade and retrofit your house, that's probably going to be cost prohibitive. So if you, like me, have a 1970 house that you would like to protect, doing all of the small steps that just in regard to the fuels, removing any chance of fuel that's going to make access to your house. So that first 5 feet, clean it out. Don't plant things up against the house. Don't put combustibles on the ground next to the house. And then that 5 to 30 feet, you want to work on spacing. So if you are going to have things planted, you want to have it spaced apart so that you don't provide continuous ability for fire to move through. If you have shrubs or bushes, you want to have those spread out. A single bush burning doesn't provide the same level of heat that an entire line of arborvitae does. That will provide radiant heat and convective heat that will help heat your home and burn it. So really working your way out till you get to that outer 100 feet and then making sure that you have everything mowed down. Often in Eastern Washington, this is a beautiful time of year. I live in Eastern Washington still. Everything's green. It looks like the Scottish Highlands right now, but it's only going to look like that for about another week or 2 weeks. And then everything's going to start to turn brown. We haven't had any rain. We're probably not going to have any more. And so keeping that grass mowed very short, fire doesn't travel fast in mowed grass. It just doesn't. Stubble, your flame lengths are very short. Even if you do have ember cast or you do get spotting from a fire, it doesn't move with the ferocity that taller fuels do. So those are some basics. And I think really if people go, we often don't make laps around our own home thinking about the what ifs. Well, what if fire came from this direction or this direction? And I think it's really important to go take that walk around your own property, especially if you've ever seen fire behavior. You'll have a pretty good idea of what could happen. But for the general public who's never seen that, they've never witnessed fire moving at a high rate of speed, go watch a YouTube video. Go find a video of fire moving into a neighborhood and see what that looks like. And then put yourself in that perspective and go out and look at your property and what on your property is going to help fire carry and get into your building.
I would think insurance companies would also be incredibly motivated to educate as many of their customers as possible about these. Are you seeing them get more involved with fire agencies in training and educating the public? Are they providing you resources to conduct familiarization sessions with the general public?
You know, I haven't seen a lot from the insurance companies. What I do see from the insurance companies is they've stepped up their individual protection for their protectees. So they are investing in fire engines. They hire strike team leaders, put together strike teams of specialty rigs, vehicles that go out and just protect a single home because that person pays insurance to them. It's cheaper for them to do that than to pay for the full loss. I haven't seen them investing in the training. They're quick to react if they see something these days with satellite photos. And now with AI's ability to evaluate it and take the human part out and the subjectivity that comes along with it, they're much quicker, it seems, just to drop people if they see anything that causes them concern. So the best thing that a homeowner can do is be proactive and take that upon themselves, knowing that you're probably being watched from the sky and being evaluated by not a person on what you've done to prepare your home.
Yeah, I've come across those private fire engines multiple times. We've been sent to areas to do structure prep. We'll show up, be going down the street, and there'll be an all white brush truck sitting in the driveway. They said, "We're good. Pretend like we're not here." And there'll be 6 outbuildings on the property, and they're protecting the 6,000 square foot log home next to the lake. And they write everything else off. So then we're going around the other stuff. But if you could think back to your strike team leader days, when you are sent, for the firefighters listening, when you're sent to a neighborhood and say, "Hey, we're going to structure triage and protection," what are you looking for when you structure triage, and what do you expect your guys to do with structure prep?
Okay, well, structure. The last time I took a strike team out was 3 years ago here in Washington State. Did a lot of structure prep, lost a lot of structures as well. When I go into a neighborhood or into an area community, I think of it as sick, not sick.
Mm-hmm.
We see that every day. We do a lot of aid calls, and we walk in, and all three of us can look at a person from the door as we're coming in, and we can make that assessment of that person. And usually we're pretty close to spot on without even doing an evaluation. So when I look at a home as I'm driving down the street, it screams defensible or not defensible. And then we can drill down on what that really looks like and what we need to do beyond that. The number one thing for me is access. If a driveway looks like we can't get vehicles in and out, or there's not a turnaround, if it's really tight, that's concerning, and that's probably someplace that we're not going to invest, because there are too many instances of fatalities, near burnovers, shelter deployments, having to shelter in a structure for firefighters when they go into something that doesn't have a good access, ingress, and egress. So that for me is the very first. If you've got a great wide driveway, graveled, paved, brush is cut back, ladder fuels are gone, then we're going to invest more time, which is that second look. We're going to get up, we're going to evaluate your buildings and what you've done to prepare, and if we're going to be able to defend it. So getting into an area, doing a quick triage of what homes we think are savable, and then going back and using our resources, because I think the public thinks that we show up in such numbers that we can put a fire truck at every house. But the last strike team leader assignment that I had, I had 5 engines with me. And again, there was a insurance company strike team in the area that we weren't able to really collaborate with. That's not what they're designed for. And then one other local strike team. And we had hundreds of homes that we were trying to filter through and evaluate which one to save. And a lot of it came down to, once fire got to those homes or started to impact those homes, those are the ones that we would jump in and try and save. We didn't have the resources to go clean brush for people. We didn't have time to clean their gutters or put sprinklers up. We had time to pull in, deploy half of our tank of water, put out whatever was burning up against their home, and then move on to the next one and try and save them.
And then what do you expect if you do have time to do structure prep? What do you expect your crews to be doing during structure prep?
Yeah, so we want to start closest to the fire and work away from it. That it kind of goes without saying. We want to start with what is savable. And the first thing that we do is go remove all those items from up against the house. I want people to take furniture and take firewood and anything that's movable that we can take out, and we're going to throw that as far away from the home. And often you feel bad. You feel like you're making a mess on somebody's property. But if I had the choice between having my house at the end of the day or having to restack a cord of firewood and move all my furniture back from down the hill, I'd take the latter. So starting right up against the structure, clear that 0 to 10 feet really, and get everything away and get it out as far away as you can. And then we will start cutting down brush. If the spacing on the bushes and the shrubs and the trees, we will, if we know that the fire is coming, we will start cutting and removing. That's always a delicate dance, because I don't want to go into some beautiful property that people have invested tens of thousands of dollars in all of these things that they've planted and made their place beautiful. They're not there because they've been evacuated. And then we come in and destroy everything that they have, and then fire doesn't get there. That's a really bad look. That's a bad day for the fire service. So the person in charge has to make that decision and own that fire is coming and it will be here, and we're going to do everything that we can to save this structure. And then that's when we're going to do that complete clearing, open everything up, open the canopy, start taking ladder fuels farther away from the structure, get everything up off the ground. And then make sure that windows are closed, doors are closed, garage doors are closed. And if homeowners still have power, which is often a problem in these areas, but if there's still power and there's water, then get their hoses going and get their sprinklers going and get that set up around their structure. That's something that's really easy to do. Homeowners often do that for us on their way out. But if they don't, something that we can come get started for them.
Andrew, you were talking, I think when we were chatting the other day, did you say that there was a community where firefighters were labeling properties that were defendable by marking stones in front of the property. And then the homeowners got wind of this and basically started marking them their own properties that, yes, this is a defendable property.
It was years ago. I'm sure Chief saw it too. So there was red rocks and green rocks. And if you had a red rock, so it's for those homes where you can't see the house from the road. It's just a driveway that heads up into the hillside. So someone like Chief would wander up and take his pickup and check out each residence. And then if the house was not defendable, they'd come out and spray a red rock at the end of the road. And if it was, they'd spray a green rock. So the fired brush trucks or city engines, type 1s, they wouldn't even commit to the driveway if there was a red rock at the end of the driveway. So yes, homeowners caught wind and started buying green paint and putting green rocks on the way out. So I've seen the same thing with,
I've seen the same thing with flagging. As soon as you start marking something, it doesn't take people long, especially if they haven't evacuated, those who have stayed in the area, to figure out what you're doing. And they get your number, and they will take that green flagging that you put on their neighbor's driveway, and they'll move it over to theirs because they want you to focus on theirs. That's been a problem for years.
Well, one of the worst things in their life is about to happen, so you can't blame them entirely. I know they're not really thinking about the community as a whole when they do that, but they're like, "Oh my gosh, my property is about to burn. I really want someone to help me." So
yeah, a friend of mine that I've met through taking classes, he was a volunteer firefighter. That fire, he lives up near Highway 2. The fire came towards his house. He was told to evacuate. He got his wife and kids to the high school. He came back and he was standing in the driveway and he was asking, I flagged down a brush truck, a DNR rig, and he said, "Hey, what can I do?" And they said, "Do you have any training?" He said, "No." They said, "Go to the high school." And he left, and he said he was military special forces. He said, "I've never in my life been in a position where my wife and kids were fine, but my property was in danger, and I was powerless because I had no knowledge and no skills to help protect what I had physically built." So he ended up, after the fire, he marched into the fire station, said, "What do we do here? How do I get involved?" He started volunteering. He bought an old pickup truck and watched, Marketplace and Craigslist, and he bought a slip-in unit and a pump, and he was the ultimate prepper when it comes to wildfires. He ended up building a brush truck, becoming a firefighter. Now, many people do not have those means. He went to the extreme, but hopefully, after information like this is something that people can do. Tapping into your experience and what you've seen and what homeowners can take it on for themselves. Like you said, there are areas that are now insurance companies are pulling out of the entire area, right? If there's been fires there in the past, they're saying, well, you're no longer covered for wildland fires. So, good luck. So that's why this is such a big deal. It's most people's biggest investment. And now there's no coverage
for it. Of course. You mentioned the guy building his own brush truck of sorts. There are a lot of YouTube videos that people can go and see. You put a IBC tote on the back of a pickup or a 4x4 of sorts with some plumbing and a $100 Predator pump from Harbor Freight. And you've got a really decent spray mechanism for your property. Now, obviously, it's kind of dangerous to stay there if your house is being threatened. But if you have little pocket fires around your property, that's what these folks are using it for, I think, to great effect. So easy to do. So
the best prep I ever saw was a house here in Central Washington. We pulled up, we were doing structure protection, and we get out and there's a note on the tree right by the gate. Gates open, and it gave us all of the directions we needed. The homeowner had a 10,000 gallon cistern in the ground. He had a pump set up with the draft hose down into the cistern. The pump ran to in-ground lines that fed standpipes all around his property. At every standpipe was a 1-inch hose coiled with a nozzle on it, complete circumference of his property.
Wow.
It was amazing. But here's the problem. Yeah. It would have taken the whole strike team worth of people to man all of those hose lines that he had on his property. But he was set up, or they were set up. It was beautiful. Like everything, he'd done everything that he could to prep that place. We did save it, and we did have an engine there, and you could have bounced around from hose line to hose line, I guess, but he had invested a lot to prepare for that day, and that day happened.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
When it comes to structure prep, I've been in scraping needles away from decks in, I think it was South Lake Tahoe. And what firefighters need to remember is I was on the ravine side of the house with a rake, just pulling needles away from the wood deck. And I hear, "Hey, thanks a lot, buddy." And I look up and there's a Ring camera on the railing of the deck facing the ravine. And I say, "Hey, yeah, no problem. Just, place is still here. We're doing what we can." And then, so there's Ring cameras everywhere, obviously. So people, if there's power and internet, they know if their structure's still standing. Many people just left notes, handwritten notes taped to the door with phone numbers. And for the firefighters out there, a few days into the incident, after we've done the prep and we're just coming back to the neighborhoods to police it when the fire is, not on the neighborhood. I've sent pictures of our fire engine in front of their home. Said, "Hey, we're here. House is still here. We watered your garden," right? Obviously, this is not a time when we're fighting fire. And the response from those texts they're very grateful people. Just a heads up that their place is still standing and someone is there.
That's awesome. People are used to seeing Amazon give them a photo. "Hey, your package has been delivered." Now they're getting a photo from a firefighter. "Hey, your house is available. Your house has been saved." You mentioned Ring cameras. Chief, what role has technology played in the work you're doing out in the field? Satellite imagery, drones, AI software you mentioned earlier. What tools are you using today?
I was on a fire last month in Nebraska. I went with an incident management team that needed help, and I was available, and I spent 10 days out there. And we were picking up fires via satellite, via infrared. Our incident meteorologist was watching it. We had initial attack responsibility for the entire state of Nebraska. And we were picking up fires before we got the call from the local fire chief or dispatch center requesting our assistance. And we were able to start sending resources. So it's really cool. On a daily basis, someone somewhere probably is sitting watching Eastern Washington and watching heat sources. But when you have an incident management team that's engaged and involved, and that's all you're focused on, you're able to respond much quicker. So I really like that we are starting to embrace technology at that level. I mean, there's been Modus and Virus, and there's anybody can get watch duty and see fires, but those seem to have a time lag. Those already become developed and well established before they show up and people know that they're happening. We also, using drones has become a big thing, and aircraft are dangerous. Helicopters have a propensity to fall out of the sky. And so being able to use drones and get up and use the infrared capability on them and check for heat, check for hot spots around houses. The Gray Fire in Medical Lake several years ago, we went through and checked all of Medical Lake house by house using drones. We built a database so that we could track live real time at the incident command post. The operations and the ICs could watch as that number came from, I forget, we started with 6,000 some homes and then worked our way down as we checked every structure. And the people out on the line, they could just click the address and that home had been checked as the the drones worked through. That helped us find heat that had been hidden and we wouldn't have found otherwise. And it also gave us peace of mind when we left there that we checked and done everything that we possibly could. We know from the last couple of years, whether it's Palisades, which was the Lockman, or Lahaina, that rekindles are really bad. They're bad for the fire service. And when you watch chiefs get up and speak alongside the ATF and talk about the cause of the rekindle was they left some unburned or some burning ember near unburned fuel, that's a really bad day. And we lose a little bit of that trust that the public has for us. So I think using that technology to help us be more successful, taking the human component out. People get tired. People have checked 10, 20, 30 homes, and you lose that engagement. So that other than a battery dying, our drones don't get tired of looking at homes. Right. It's really nice to be able to use those things. So I think we're going to see it a lot more. I think as artificial intelligence, the use of it grows, it's going to find its way into the fire service. And what that looks like, I don't know. But I think it's going to play a bigger role in what we do in wildland.
I was actually at Medical Lake. I'm part of a Team Rubicon. So I was part of a Sawyer team that went in after that. And it was surreal just seeing this landscape of just burned out trees and properties. It was amazing, really. So I was there probably several weeks after you were there. Just taking trees down. But with regard to technology, the weather, the ability for the meteorologist to predict direction and conditions, has that changed over the years? Is that steadily getting better?
Boy, I wish I could say yes, but it seems, not to knock them, I have some good friends and some great people that I've worked with that are really good at the weather, but it's the only job that you can be wrong 90% of the time and still get paid. I mean, and I know there's especially on incidents where we bring in an incident meteorologist and it's not their home area and they have to come in and they have to try and get a grasp of what the weather pattern is there, and then using the technology that they do to try and predict and plan what's coming. And just from my recent deployment in Nebraska, the weather that was planned and upcoming for the next 3 days, in a matter of 2 hours from one briefing to another, would go from red flag warning and change to potential for snow. Like it's so hard to get it right, and they're trying, but there's so many variables. I don't see a ton of consistencies. Sometimes they can tell us that we've got wind coming 10 days out. There's a cold front coming and we can plan. So I wouldn't say that all the time it's wrong, but it's definitely not right all the time. So I look forward to the future when they're able to predict a little farther out and with a little more consistency.
Well, I think something we should have covered a little earlier for our listeners, but we're talking about wildland-urban interface. But the reason we're talking about this is because there are 70,000 communities in a total of 46 million homes that fall under that, what's considered wildland-urban interfaces. The neighborhoods on the edge of the wildland. So between 1990 and 2010, that those neighborhoods grew by 41%, which was the fastest growing land use in the United States. So, and from 2010 to 2023, there were 59,000 structures that were destroyed with the wildland urban interface. So many of those fires, the Paradise Fire, 20,000 structures burned, 85 people passed away. The Tubbs Fire in California in 2017, 5,000 structures, 22 people passed away. The Palisades fires in 25, 16,000 structures, 27 people died. They say the total of that one was $250 billion in damage. Lahaina in 23, 2,200 structures, over 100 people passed away. Marshall Fire in 21, 1,000 homes. Both Lahaina and the Marshall Fire had hurricane-force winds, which makes it impossible to fight. Like you said, Chief, water coming out, turning 90 degrees. So that's why these homeowners doing structure prep and doing what they can is really the only chance of survival for their own structures. I mean, I've heard it said if your plan is to call 911 and have the fire department handle it, then you don't have a plan. So, like you said, it's incumbent upon homeowners to have some type of prep done on their part. So,
yeah, I think the wildland urban interface, it's so interesting that we all seem to crave that, to get farther away. People want to move out of the city, then they move to the suburbs, then they want to move from the suburbs, then their next place is 10 acres in the woods somewhere. And we've pushed as a civilization, as a population, we've pushed out into those areas, and then we're surprised when the wildlife is in our backyard, or the fire is coming through our residential area. And that all existed and was much easier to deal with when there weren't homes there. And we've changed that dynamic. We've inserted ourselves where we weren't. And I'm not advocating that we shouldn't. I love being remote and I love having property, but we've put ourselves in that position where it's kind of like moving beside an airport. The planes are going to fly. It's going to be annoying, and it's going to disrupt your life. And when you move out into that area, the fires have always burned there, and they will continue. And you have to figure out how to work with it and to adapt and hopefully overcome.
Yeah. People talk about the size of the fire, but the location of the fire is much more important. I know every year there's fires in California that are hundreds of thousands or Alaska that are hundreds of thousands of acres that nobody fights because there's nothing. Number one, it happens every several years. And number two, there's no structures to protect. It's just nature resetting itself, right? But there could be a 2,000 acre fire in California with hundreds of structures threatened, which is a much bigger deal, huge amount of resources. So yeah, it's the location makes a much bigger difference.
It sure does.
How dangerous is, well, I want to ask you about the dangerous side of this wildland firefighting, but also want to ask you about camp life too, because I think a lot of people just don't know how big these responses are, how many people are involved, and what it takes to mobilize and feed and care for all of these people doing this work. But I will mention just recently, a few days ago, 4 firefighters were burned in a prescribed burn on the East Coast. In California. So people get hurt. How dangerous is wildland firefighting?
You know, it's so unpredictable. It's being a structure firefighter. We understand what it's like to go deal with a house that's burning. It's got 4 sides, it's got a floor, it's got a roof, and it's contained to that. And as long as we know that going in, we can hit it from one of the sides or from above, and it generally isn't going to move and change on us. If we are defensive, it's going to be relatively safe for us to stay outside, lob water on it. If we're offensive, there's an inherent risk. We do that for a reason. But with wildland fire, you can be in what is relatively safe, a seemingly safe area, and then be cut off and have no escape and be in harm's way very quickly. I'll go back to an incident that I had. It still gives me chills, but several years ago, I was in Alaska, had a 96,000 acre fire that I was managing as a division by myself, a trainee, and a few hand crews. And I stepped off a boat. I'd flown over the fire an hour before, landed, got on a boat, moved to a new location to meet up with a couple of the crews. I stepped off the boat, and we had a storm cell set up on top of us. The fire had been doing nothing for days. It hadn't moved. It wasn't growing. Relatively stable. We had an 80-foot line cut around this piece of property that we were attempting to save. It was mile and a half long. And a storm cell set up, and I got called by the incident meteorologist and said, you got a weather change and expect unpredictable fire behavior. And within minutes, we had flames shooting 300 feet out over the river as it moved towards us. And we attempted to fire off our line and hold it, and that was unsuccessful. The winds picked up. We had 30-mile-an-hour winds out of that, the downdrafts, and we ended up with people running through the woods. Thank goodness they had an escape route that they'd picked the day before, but running through the woods with helicopters dropping water on them. Camp burned over, got everybody onto boats and out onto an island while fire came through, and I sat on the bank with fire all around me, dug a line around myself and the pump and the equipment that I had sitting there as fire came right through. And I was pretty sure that I'd lost people. Accountability at that point radio was terrible. Sat phones weren't working. And I was sure that someone had perished in that event. It happened so quickly. It was in less than 20 minutes that it went from completely safe with no sign of fire to running for our lives. And by the grace of God, I thank him. That did not happen. Everyone was saved. Everyone got out alive. But it can happen in a split second. And even the most prepared, even the hose lines in place, the line cut, the pumps running, it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's just unpredictable, and you're just playing with the odds and hope. And hope isn't a good strategy, but sometimes that's what it comes down to.
Wow. How many people were mobilized for that particular fire?
On that fire, I had 2 10-person modules and a 20-person shot crew, and myself and a trainee. So about roughly 44 of us on that incident, including boat operators. Not a lot of people for a 96,000 acre fire. But we had so many fires going in that complex. We were spread out like that on every one of the, I think, 7 fires that we had. But like to Andrew's point, when he brought up Alaska, there wasn't a lot that we had to save. There wasn't a lot that we had to protect. We were letting fire operate as it naturally does, and then just picking those specific points where we could inject ourselves and try and make a difference and save something that needed to be saved.
Wow. Well, let's transition a little bit to fires with a lot more people involved, camp life. How big do these events get? And tell us, for people that have no experience in this area, what are the sleeping conditions like? How do you feed that many people? Because you're out there for days, weeks, right?
Yeah. So standard deployment's 14 days. You plan on going 14 days, figure you're going to have travel on either side of that. So usually you're gone 16 to 18 days from home. If there's firefighters out there that have gone to California like Andrew and I, and that's all you've done, you've been lied to. That's not what it's like when you deploy. You don't stay in comfort, and you don't eat in restaurants. Sometimes that's just due to the size of the incident and the amount of people that are being taken care of. But standard here in the Northwest and in Washington and Oregon and a lot of the Western United States, a camp is set up relatively quickly. We are blessed in this country that the government provides so much financial backing to make these work. The government will fund everything that comes along with the camp, and it becomes a city very quickly. And usually it comes at a school, in an open field, at a campground, whatever location is big enough. They will set up for a sleeping area. Everybody sleeps in tents. They will bring in national kitchens that they can feed thousands of people quickly, and all the other amenities that you need to live. Not comfort. Doesn't mean you're going to be sitting in any chair with a pad on it or sleeping in a bed, but food, sanitation, showers, ability to wash your clothes, ability to send mail. Some people still do that, I guess. I don't know, but there's always a public information officer that wants to send mail for you or receive mail. But these camps are set up very quickly, generally in 24 to 48 hours, fully functioning. They bring in mechanics, and there's the ability for taking care of your vehicles, keeping them on the road so that you can continue to fight fire. And then that's all run by an incident management team. So all those positions are a volunteer army of people. They're still getting paid, but they're getting paid by their home agency. Those people all volunteer to come together and be part of an incident management team, and they all specialize in unique parts of that. So there's people involved in communications, and they go get in a helicopter and fly up on the ridges all around a fire and put up repeaters so that we can all talk on the fire. And there's a medical unit that brings in ambulances and paramedics and REMS units so that they can extract victims if we get hurt fighting the fire. And then there's the logistics, all the ordering of things that you need, the thousands of feet of hose and the hundreds of pumps and coolers so that people can have cold drinks when they're out on the line. That all comes together very quickly, supported by the National Fire Cache. And that's how the incident is managed by an incident management team. And then just a portion of that is the operation side. And the operation side is all of us who are out fighting the fire, doing the good work. And that's the operations develops the plan, and then everything else works to support that plan around it.
David, I think you're muted.
Yeah, thank you very much. I had muted myself when I was writing, so you wouldn't hear all of that. But so you mentioned you're being paid by your agency, Eastside Fire and Rescue. So if someone sees a bunch of Eastside Fire and Rescue vehicles heading down I-90, heading east, is Eastside being compensated by the federal government or the state to help pay those expenses?
Yeah, that's a great question, because people want to know where, why their engine or their tax dollars are going somewhere else. It's a temporary that you're paid by your agency. So the bill is funded by whatever the home unit is for the fire that you're going to. So last year we had some fires up on the Colville Indian Reservation. Those were paid for by the federal government. And they figure out, there's a whole finance section that's part of that team that arrives, and they figure out who is responsible for what part of the cost, depending on where the fire is. And fires don't stay in one place. So it might start on state land, which would be covered by Washington DNR, and it moves on to Fed land, which is then covered by Forest Service. And then it touches some Bureau of Land Management. And so all of that cost share gets put together at the end of the incident. They figure out how much time you used down to the person on the engine, how much was spent on each part of that. And then that's how it's billed out. And then the agency is paid back for everything that they fronted to pay their employees. And they're also reimbursed for the use of the vehicles. There's a set rate. It's set by the state fire chiefs. And that's what that type of engine with that amount of hose and that amount of water, that's what it gets paid for its daily use. So there is no cost at the end of the entire deployment. There is no cost that is borne by the taxpayers from that responding entity.
It seems like it's a win-win. I mean, the taxpayers, as you said, aren't footing the bill for this. The local agency communities aren't paying for this, but they're getting the opportunity for you to get training, exposure to these events, and hopefully bring some of that knowledge back to them.
That's the biggest thing that the agency gets. I mean, there's some minor financial benefit at the end of it, I believe. I'm not a finance person, but I've been told. But what the agency gets is all of the exposure that their firefighters get to seeing these large incidents elsewhere when they occur. And then you come back and you bring that ability to respond. It puts slides in your slide tray. So when you see that in your area, you're able to better respond, better act, and take better care of the public.
It's a really good experience, and a lot of agencies are setting the agency's apparatus with volunteers on board. So those volunteers obviously are getting paid when they're assigned to the incident. So at their home agency, they might be a volunteer part paid, but when they're assigned to the incident, they're getting paid travel time and hours worked. It's very good experience. And from somebody you were talking about camp, from somebody who just, I show up, I dig in the dirt. I go where I'm told, I dig in the dirt. I do whatever chief says, right? From somebody that shows up, you'll leave in the afternoon, you'll drive into the night, you'll take a nap in the lawn of a middle school. You'll wake up and ops will say, you're with this division, go. And you go out and you work and you come back to the middle school. And now there's a trailer that has maybe a mobile kitchen and some more porta potties showed up. And then the next day you get up and you leave and you come back. And now there's more semi-trailers. Now there's communications trailer. Now there's, maybe hopefully a shower sometimes. And then, then you leave and you come back and the next day. So all that stuff that the overhead team that Chief's involved in is just building that city every day. And then every day more and more crews are showing up. So it just naturally gets bigger and bigger. And then you've got a mess hall tent. And then anyway, it's very impressive how quickly it grows, like Chief was saying.
And every so often it's Napa Valley with steak dinners, right?
Well, it's usually inmates. Cal Fire runs a great incident. Chief, I don't know what your experience has been. I think they've done a great job. Every fire I've been on.
Oh, they do.
But they have a huge amount of experience and massive amount of resources. They are run well. The ones I've been on, Cal Fire runs a great incident. Most of the time when we're down there, it's inmate crews making us meals, 3 meals a day. You have breakfast in camp, and then you take your sack lunch, and then you come back and you have dinner in camp. And there was one fire I was on in Napa Valley where Guy Fury showed up with his massive mobile kitchen and made dinner for everybody. It was delicious. I think there was 5,000 people at that camp that year. So
that was last year on the Palisades. We were there. And when I was saying that about people being lied to by going to California, it's not eating like that every day. And it's not potentially being put up in hotels. I mean, California does a phenomenal job of hosting. Last year, we would every day have deliveries from some 5-star restaurant that would come out and deliver at a school, and everybody in the division had to drive down and pick it up. And we weren't hungry. We were being fed so well. We didn't need to eat again. But when you have amazing food being delivered like that for free, this is the public giving back to us. Felt guilty not taking it. And you felt guilty that they were investing in us when we were there to invest in them. That's the reason we came there.
Well, they're grateful. I mean, you talked before about you're protecting the most valuable, important thing beside their family members in their lives. And so you're doing a big, important job. And it's natural to want to thank you. And I'm sure both of you get the same thanks when you show up at a house fire and you save a property or you save someone or you're on a great medical save. People are thankful that you're bringing clarity of thought and experience and knowledge and professionalism every time you show up. So it's remarkable, and we're all grateful for that. So, Chief, there are so many more things we could talk about, both for wildland fires, but also structural firefighting that would like to cover. I hope you'll come back and join us again as our little podcast
I would love
grows.
to be back. We could talk all day about this. I don't get tired of discussing wildland fire or fire in general. My wife will tell you, 24 years, she's pretty tired of hearing about fire.
I think people like learning about this, and there's so much. People see firefighters every day, but so many people don't really know enough about the system, how it works, the lives of firefighters, and the roles you all play. So,
yeah,
that's our job.
Well,
share those stories.
Absolutely. Before you wrap up, I just want to say we're headed into fire season right now. It's the start. For King County, we're just starting to put together our weekly manifest, our weekly list of who's ready to deploy. So this is the time. It looks like here in Eastern Washington, we're going to get some wind over the next 3 days with some fire weather conditions with dry fuels. That's already coming. It's being forecasted. So people should start preparing now. You should have been preparing for the last, the winter months, the spring months, but it's time now. We're past halftime on this year. So it does look like we're going to be pretty dry. Maybe not Western Washington until late August, September, but definitely on the east side of the state, it's going to be fire weather conditions, hot, dry, potential for wind and lightning. So just sat through with an incident meteorologist, and our fire season looks like it could be lined up along with 2015. And if people remember 2015, it was a very significant year for large fires across the state and some loss of life. So,
well, we'll include in the show notes some of the sites Andrew has found to help homeowners prepare their properties. As you said, defensive strategies of removing fuel elements from their properties. Simple steps people can take that make a big difference. So,
hey, Chief Seth Merritt, thank you very much for your time. You gave some people some ideas and some things that they can do for themselves, empowering them to take on some of this, and hopefully, at a minimum, make it so when you drive down their driveway, you can say, "Hey, this is defensible," right?
That's right.
Thank you very much for your time, Chief. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Look forward to seeing you in the near future.
Thank you. Take care, Chief.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.
Andrew, that was a fantastic interview with Chief Merritt. I learned a lot. I'm sure you did as well, and I'm sure the audience will have learned a great deal as well, both for structural and wildland firefighting. He was just fantastic. And I hope we can have him back to talk about, his structural firefighting side, what his role as a battalion chief entails at Eastside.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge amount of experience, well-spoken, very intelligent, great guy too. So,
Andrew, we have some other important news to share related to Dwell Secure, the platform that you created and developed a number of years ago. A new version is available, 3.0.2. It's available for both iOS and Android phone users, and it's got some great new features related to documenting essential services for first responders. Can you share some of those details?
Yes. So sometimes when we show up on scene, the homeowners are not there. Many times if it's snow on the ground, there's been a deep freeze and there's water leaking from a house and a neighbor calls it in. Sometimes we have zero information about the house. So knowing where those shutoffs are, if there is one inside the house, or if we just go to the meter, if there's snow on the ground, we don't even know where the meter is. So it's a great starting point for us to find things. And the app also allows storing information on medical concerns as well. So if you've got loved ones take a lot of meds, have a significant medical history, this information could be aid in helping your loved one get better. So for example, I have a nephew with special needs, and he might have a caregiver, and my sister, who's a phenomenal caregiver, if she's not there, there could be gaps in passing on history. So this is one place to store all that information that will be needed.
And homeowners, control the information. They can decide what to share. And I know when you and I are on medical calls in the fire service, we'll show up at a house. We'll start, providing medical care and interviewing our patient or their family. And there may be, especially for older adults or people with a lot of medical conditions, there may be a litany of prescription bottles to absorb and try and get a picture of what the problem is that we're trying to treat. So with Dwell Secure, we could, for example, just scan a QR code on the refrigerator and instantly see all of the medications that the patient may be taking, that we could then document and then share with the physicians when we transport them to an emergency room.
Yes, it could be very helpful on scene. Not something we would slow down patient care to access, but something that that could aid in the treatment of the patient we're seeing.
Yeah, it's a good point. So thank you. I think the more people that get exposed to Dwell Secure, they'll discover so many cool features about the application. And unlike some of the there are other platforms out there that attempt to do similar things. I don't think they do it as well. So I think people will be pleased with the level of control that Dwell Secure gives the homeowner in protecting their important but still private information.
Agreed. There's very few applications out there or systems out there that allow to store this data. In my personal opinion, it's free. I think it's the best one out there. It allows homeowners to empower their loved ones to handle their own situations when they arise, when 911 is overrun with calls. In the future, though, David, I think we're going to be talking about things like the dangers of cold water in the spring, Hollywood's take on firefighting, electric fire engines. I'm actually very curious to dive into that one. I know there's a few local places that have electric fire engines. I want to know how that's going for them.
I was in one. They're really cool. I know people are like, if it's not diesel and makes a lot of noise, it's not a real fire engine. But I know there's a future in these, so we'll learn about that.
I think there is going to be things like helicopter rescues, buying a new fire engine, all of those things we're gonna cover. Firefighter Stairclimb. It's an event that happens here in the Seattle area. It is the #1 fundraiser for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society.
How many times have you done that?
Ooh, I did it probably 7-8 years in a row. Then I took about a 20-year gap, and I think I've done it 4 or 5 times in a row now. So it is just pure pain and agony.
And you just did it this past March as well, right?
Yes, we both did it.
Yeah, I was there. I trained for it. I had terrible times. I'm much older than you are, so that's a little bit of my. I get a little bit of a give on that one, but it was great, and I'm planning to do it again next year. If you're a firefighter, you've never done it before, it's a fantastic event. It raises money for an important cause, and it's just fun to be around. A lot of firefighters.
It is incredible. If you want to do it, though, sign up for the notifications and be registering the day of. It sells out every year.
I would say within minutes when that link becomes live. And, there was 2 years ago, I tried signing up. There was something wrong with the system. It broke. Yes, and I was delayed by 15 minutes or so. And by the time I tried again, nope, it was sold out. So, yeah.
It takes place in the tallest building in the city of Seattle. And there's only so much capacity. We use one of the stairwells, and so there's only so much time in the day, so they have to put a cap on it. It sells out every year within minutes.
Well, I can't wait till we cover that episode and I won't give too much away, but your fire department is key to that event taking place.
Yes.
So, those story ideas that we've got and plan, and the guests we have planned are great. So I hope people join us again for the next episode. I hope you all enjoyed our interview with Chief Seth Merritt, and hope you learned something too about wildland fire preparedness.
Yeah, David, let's just keep empowering people with knowledge. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Andrew.
Okay, you too.
Attention, all units. All of the content of Straight Stick is copyright protected. Don't forget to subscribe so you hear the tones when future episodes drop.